people have when they're looking to make a purchase. And a lot of what we talked about is it won't look like what the picture is, the flowers won't be fresh, you know, all these kind of problems. And really all of those things come down to trust, right? The trust that you'll deliver what somebody expects. And so your online reputation is a huge part of delivering that trust. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to create an online reputation that grows your business and delivers results for you. For those of you who didn't join us last time, hello, I'm Krista. I've been doing digital marketing for a long time now, and I'm excited to share some tips and tricks with you today. Now, one thing I'm going to point out as we go through our time together today is if you have questions, ask them as we go in the question box. So you'll see the question and answer box within the GoToWebinar control panel. Ask questions as we go. There's a good chance I'm not going to leave a lot of time at the end because I prefer to answer your questions when we're sort of in the topic and relevant. So if you have any questions, ask them while we're on the go. That's the best way. And I love getting questions. No question is too big, small, easy, or hard. So ask away. Here's what we're going to cover in our time together. Really what we're focusing on today is your online reputation overall. Last time we talked about e-commerce websites and some of the tips and best practices specific to driving commerce on your site. Today, we're kind of like stepping back a tiny bit to talk about how do you measure your online reputation, or how do you manage your online reputation in a smart way? And there's really 6 core aspects that we'll talk about. So that's really going to be the focus of our time together today. So let's dive in and get started. The first thing that I want you to do when you're looking for your online reputation is to start your journey the same way your customers would start their journey. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, if you have a computer or even your phone, just go to Google and search florist near me. Now, if you are using a browser that you use a lot for work, what you'll want to do, if possible, is open what's called an incognito browser or a private browser. What this does, so if you go into your internet browser and say open new window and choose incognito or private, you'll see something like that. What this does is it will show you the internet with sort of a fresh start. So if you use your regular browser to do Google searches, Google actually will include all of your historic search data in what they choose to show you. So for example, if you go to your own website a lot, Google's like, wow, they must be interested in this site a lot. We're going to rank it higher for this particular person. When you use a private or incognito window, it strips away all the data and you can sort of start fresh with none of your previous browsing history being passed on to that search window. So I'd encourage you, open your browser and do a search for florists near me and take a look at what shows up. I'm going to actually, let me just fix my screen sharing here. Here we go. I'm going to actually switch my screen sharing here to show you within Chrome what it looks like when I do this search. So I did this the other day when I was in Orlando, and I just searched florists near me, right? And this is a common search that people do when they're trying to find a business nearby. So as we think of like the layers of searching, there's somebody who's like, hey, I need flowers. What's around? And then we all have a deeper layer where somebody says, oh, this is a florist I'm interested in. Let me check them out. And we'll talk about that separately. For now, we're starting just with this florist near me, which is the most common search that people will do. And so what we can see here is this section at the top, which is our map results or our local results. Whenever somebody does a search that Google believes has local intent, meaning if you're searching for businesses that Google thinks you'd want to go for something near you, they typically will show places, which are also called places, locations, Google local listings, Google business listings, right at the top here. So that's the first thing we see is this map listing. Then as we scroll down below this, we see what's called our organic search results. Our organic search results are essentially where we start to see which websites are ranking with Google. And so now we can see the top 3 results. Google's showing me this in Bloom Florists, then they're showing Yelp, followed by another florist. So the first part of your online reputation sort of analysis is to understand, where are you ranking now with some of these searches? And if you're not ranking, who is ranking, and how strong and powerful are they? Now, I'm going to go into the detailed aspects of what leads to ranking in these different areas and give you some easy, actionable tips that you can use in order to improve your rankings. The first thing I want to talk about is the organic search rankings. So these MAP rankings, or Google Local or Google Business Listings, you'll hear people call them all those different things, or Google Places. We're going to talk about those separately. For now, what I want to talk about is the websites that rank what's called organically. Organic ranking means that when you do a search for something, Google looks all over the internet and is like, what's the best result for this search? So for my search, florist near me, Google thought In Bloom Florist was the most relevant search result near me. So why did Google think that that was the most relevant search result? What was it that led them to say, oh, let me show In Bloom Florist over, the frankly, probably hundreds of other florists that would be somewhere in the neighborhood that I was searching in? There's 3 basic elements that Google looks for to determine your rankings. And we call this the art of SEO because it's authority, relevance, and technical. The idea here is that if you understand what Google looks at to rank websites, you can then evaluate your own website to help it to rank better. So I'm going to explain a little bit what each of these 3 are, and then we're going to focus on the one that's easiest for you to take action on and control. One of the things I would recommend, if possible, is have a pen and paper handy so you can start creating like an action list of things that you want to do to take action on what we covered today. So the first thing we see when we come to SEO is authority. Basically, what Google looks at first is, how authoritative is this website? So they look at the site and they're like, how authoritative is this? Now, authority is difficult, and one of the things about these elements that's important to keep in mind is that Google doesn't actually give you a list of how to rank in search engines. They don't share their algorithm. They give general guidance, and people who do SEO for a living spend a lot of time doing research and tests to figure out the signals that are leading to rankings. But there's no direct math on any of these things. Like if you get, if you improve your authority by this much, your site will rank this much higher. It doesn't really work that way, right? So it's a little cloudy. But basically what authority is how important does Google perceive your website is? And how does Google measure authority? Well, the primary way that Google measures authority is what other websites link to your website. So are other websites linking to your site? They also look at, does this look like a big, normal, good, established business? So do you have listings on social networks and business listings? Or do you have a Google business listing? Do you seem like a good, relevant business for this search based on all the aspects of your online presence? They also look at other factors like how old is your website and things like that, some of which are harder to control. But when it comes to authority, the number one thing we're talking about there is usually links. So if you have any kind of a PR strategy or you partner with other businesses, always making sure that they link back to your site is really the simplest idea there. So that's our A, is authority. Next is relevance. Relevance means, how relevant does Google think you are for this particular search? So if I searched florists near me, first they're going to go to your website and try and figure out, are you actually a florist or not? Now, you may have all sorts of signals on your site that suggest you're a florist. Maybe you have flower arrangements, but let's say you're using clever copy. And instead of just talking about flowers, you're like, oh, here's gift ideas, or make someone's day today with this beautiful bouquet. They may not be able to understand that a place selling beautiful bouquets is a florist, right? So when it comes to relevance, what we're thinking about here is using terms that describe to Google what you do. Now, of the 3 elements in ART, this is the one that you can easily have the most control over because you can add content signals to your website to help increase your relevance. And I'm going to show you some examples of this in just a second. So relevance is that Google knows what you do, right? Google knows that you are relevant to that search. So this is where one of the things you'll see and we'll look at is that some websites may have a whole page called floral arrangements or called funeral arrangements. The reason they might have a page called funeral arrangements is partly for the customer journey, right? To make sure customers can find and navigate and see that stuff, but also for Google relevance. If I searched funeral flower arrangements, if you have content that shows that you talk about it on your site, that increases your relevance. So relevance is helping Google to know what your site is about and telling it that you're about the things that people are looking for. And the last one is technical. Technical is where it's kind of comes down to setting up your site for SEO. You'll hear people talk about this with things like adding title tags, etc. If you're looking to rank your site in search engines, making sure you actually complete some of the search optimization available to you is really important. One of the good things, if you're using a platform like Mercury Online, which is built off of Shopify, is that all of the base technical optimizations will already come built in. So if you make a custom website or you're using an older website, one of the downsides oftentimes is that those sites are no longer optimized technically for search engines. If you're using big platforms like Mercury Online, it's going to be optimized for that for you. So all you need to worry about is inputting the SEO elements that you can, and that's really going to make the difference there. So I want to dive in a little bit more into the relevance area because that's where you can really make an impact. I see a question coming in from Guillermo about authority. So the question is, for authority, where do we place the links we trade? Okay, so it's kind of a complicated question. Authority is basically the other websites that link to, authority is basically the other websites that link to your site, right? So if you can basically use, this is just an easy way to do it, a backlink checker where you type in your website. So I'm just going to type in my website, bootcampdigital.com, and this is completely free. It shows me my domain rating. Domain rating is a score from 0 to 100 of how powerful or how strong your website is. 65 is a really good score. So think of domain rating as kind of like an idea of how authoritative your site is. If your authority was 10 and the sites that we're ranking are all 50 or 60, you'll have a really hard time ever beating them in search results because they have so much more authority than you. But if you're of similar authorities, you can easily optimize your site and outrank other sites. So what you'll see when we look at this is essentially showing me different websites that linked to my site. Now, a lot of the times, these are sites where I guest post or I submit an article. In these instances, this is a different website I own. So my site, KristaNeher.com, links to bootcampdigital.com. So these are other websites that link to my site. In general, if anyone ever offers to guest post for you or wants to trade links, usually it's kind of spammy and I probably wouldn't do that kind of stuff. What you want more is, let's say you have partnerships with a funeral home and you're their preferred florist, ask for them to maybe create a blog post or a page or a section on their site where they mention you and link back to your website. So it's really helping your partners to find a relevant place on their website to link to you. So that's what you kind of want to do, is get other businesses linking to your site. And that's probably the top way that you'll increase your authority over time. So asking other websites to link to you is the primary place that you can go to increase your authority. Now, I just want to do a quick pause. I went a little bit technical here because this was a bit of a detailed question. If some of this stuff is making your head explode, because I know we have different knowledge levels. Some of you might be like, this is going really quick and I'm not following all of this. Don't worry too much about this if this is not something you specialize in, because just doing the content is going to get you a pretty good head start. So if this feels like really intense, you don't need to know all of this kind of stuff to be successful. If you're into SEO and your digital presence, great, you're probably eating this up. But if not, don't feel intimidated that you're maybe not following along. The changes you can make are actually really simple that will improve these things. So the follow-up question I got is, it's not good to build a link farm and trade links. No, in fact, if Google sees that links are reciprocated, it usually decreases the value of them. And if you do it in any kind of massive way, Google can pick up on that and they don't give you credit. One of the things to keep in mind about Google is that Google doesn't want to reward kind of like spammy behavior or people trying to like game their system. And there's been people specializing in SEO for longer than 20 years now. So anything you can do that would kind of feel like you're maybe tricking Google, it's just probably not going to work. For example, when we talk about content, having words on your site helps Google to know what your site is about. So people will say, well, I don't want to mess up my site with all these words. What if I do white text on a white background? Google stopped accepting that like literally over 15 years ago. They figured that out and started discrediting it. So anything that's kind of tricking or that you're automating too much that doesn't feel authentic likely won't get you long-term results. Think about it like this. Google's really smart, right? All they focus on is this, and all they focus on is stopping SEOs from tricking them. So they're looking for this to look organic, right? If you have natural partnerships with with other businesses, and they link to you and they refer you, they're in your local community, they're also local businesses, that feels authentic and natural. If you get links from websites that have nothing to do with your business, that's not going to look normal to Google. So I wouldn't recommend, especially for small businesses, to do things like, trying to trick Google or get into these linking relationships. What you really just need to focus on is sort of longer term sustainable strategies. So that's our authority and technical. Relevance, though, is the easiest one for you to optimize for, because relevance comes down to the content on your website. So you saw when I did my search for florists near me, Google knows where I am, right? They know I'm in Orlando. And so you see the website that ranks first, their title text, this is the sort of what they told Google in their title and description for the web page. It says Orlando Florist, flower delivery Orlando by In Bloom Florist. So what we see here is they've added the text to their website to signal to Google what they're about. And it's a little tricky because you got to do it in a bit of a natural way. So if you just like shove keywords everywhere that don't make sense, Google's like, wait, that doesn't sound right. So you need it to be authentic, but this one does a really good job, which is probably why it ranks well. In Bloom Florist is your local family-owned Orlando, Florida flower shop. So they have florist and flower shop with locations in Orlando and Heathrow, Florida, offering same-day delivery. So you see, just in these handful of words, they've signaled to Google a lot about what they're about. They're a florist. They have a flower shop. They're in Orlando. They're also in Heathrow, and they do same-day delivery. So there's 5 things that people could be searching for that they've managed to put into that section right there. And this is just what, 20 words or something like that. So when it comes to relevance, when you look at in your community even, like Orlando is a big city, probably fairly competitive. Some of you may be in big cities or small cities, but as you start looking at the sites that rank, what you typically will find is that they make sure to signal their relevance to Google. So they'll put things like, where are they located? Who do they serve? We provide flowers for funeral homes, this and that, the kind of events they service. Some of them will actually share areas they deliver to, including things like zip codes, because maybe I go on and I'm like, flowers near 33486, which is my zip code. So some of them include zip codes. Really think about what are the different things people could be searching for that you want to rank for with Google, and make sure you're including those on your website. This is an example you can see here from a website that's got a lot of content on their site, but it's also specifically there in order to signal to search engines what they're about. So this is In Bloom Florist. Again, they were the top ranking site when I did this search. So let's take a look at how did they get that organic ranking? What are they doing right? And what you see is this is just at the bottom of their site. So I kind of scrolled down to the bottom to show you this, but you can see here, weddings and events, floral design workshops. They're showing different sort of things that they do. But then when you look at their sub navigation, special services, sympathy and funeral, wedding and events. So if I search wedding flowers in Orlando, because they have content about weddings and Google knows they're in Orlando because they have Orlando all over the site, those two pieces of information will help them rank not just for florists, but for wedding flowers in Orlando. You also see when you scroll down and look at the bottom, see this Our Story section. They have a bunch of text and they talk about the different areas they deliver to and even zip codes. The reason for this is that all of this is signaling to Google what they're about, who they service, and what they do. So evaluating the content on your site to make sure you have the relevant content to signal to Google is really a key part that you can easily control of this equation. Authority, which is links showing that to Google that you're legitimate, that takes 6+ months to drive any impact, and it's a little bit nuanced and difficult. Adding content to build off of the authority you already have, anyone can do that starting today. So evaluate your content, think about the kinds of searches you want to show up for, and make sure that content is on your site. Now, I want to show you another example of this. So you can see another example of the kind of content that helps Google to know what your site is doing. So you can see this is the flower factory. And one of the things you notice, see what shows up here at the top? The top part, that text, you can control that on your site. And the text they're showing there is based on the header tags that they've inputted into the site. So you can control this on your own site, and you'll see in their header text, it has location, Tarzana, same day delivery, Los Angeles. So they're adding in 2 locations and same day delivery to try and show up for more searches. And by putting it both in the code and replicating it on the site, it's helping to create that relevance that we talked about. And I hear Elton from Flower Factory is here. So hello, you're doing a great job with your site. So you can see here that the heading, including those signals, is helping Google to understand what this website is about. If we scroll down, I'm going to talk more about reviews, but this is a great section. We'll cover it when we get to reviews. But we see the same thing I showed you on that other In Bloom site, right? Get same day flower delivery nationwide from Tarzana, California. And, you know, look, nobody is going to read all these paragraphs of text. People don't read paragraphs. But what it's doing, you can see here, right? It's showing all the cities that they serve. It's helping Google to understand what the site is about and who they service in order to provide more relevance in more searches. So, you know, this strategy of adding a lot of like zip codes and locations, some SEO experts will say it's less necessary anymore as Google has become smarter, which is true. These things used to have a huge impact. The impact has been reduced. At the same time, it certainly doesn't hurt to share this information. And you see some include zip codes, some will include all the different types of flowers you see here, anniversaries, birthday gifts, but all of this text is essentially to try to signal to search engines what the site is about overall. Now, this isn't the only way to signal to the search engine what your site is about, right? You can do it by adding some of this sort of text, but really what Google's always looking for is that your content is authentically integrated into your site. So sometimes when Google sees all that stuff at the bottom, they might think, oh, they're just kind of trying to trick us. That's just there for search engines. What do they really do? That's where also having, for example, your key occasions as pages that are optimized for search engines can also make a big difference. So having a page about funeral bouquets, if I search funeral bouquets, I would then have a better chance of your site showing up if you had a page called funeral bouquets or funeral flowers. So within the content of your website, whether it's your main page structure and navigation, if you have a blog, that works great as well, or content that you put within pages, making sure you're growing that relevance by letting Google know what you do is an easy thing that every single business can do to help expand where Google will likely rank your website. And again, if it were me, as I was looking at these page names, I would definitely want to make sure that I'm giving them names that are relevant. So for example, you see here, funeral and sympathy. Maybe I would want to call this page even funeral and sympathy flowers, just to help Google really know that it's still about flowers. That being said, it's called the Flower Factory. It's on a flower website. So you don't always have to, right? Google's become a lot smarter. A lot of things that used to be necessary to trick them are much less necessary anymore. But again, thinking about both the key to success with SEO in your website is to think about both the way Google works and what Google wants to see, but also match that with the user journey and the user experience. So if you make a site for Google, but somebody can't find what they need, you're not going to ultimately get business from it, right? You'll get a lot of traffic, but not a lot of conversions or closes. What you want to do ideally is do both. So I've come to the funeral page and you can see it's organized. Do I want to send flowers to the home, the service, or am I looking for collections or sets? And now somebody can then choose what they want to look at, and ideally they'll get more information as well. And so thinking about every single page and making sure it's clear to search engines what this is about, that's all going to help how you rank within search engines. So the first thing that we want to be thinking about is trying to rank our content in those Google search results organically, right? So that's below the map. When we start to see regular search results, that's what all of these tips that I've just given you will help with. But that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? The other piece, and arguably the bigger piece, is your Google local listing. And you'll hear these called Google local listings, Google Places, Google Business. Google's changed the names 1,000 times, and they also call it Places here, local listings there. So all of these are synonymous. And essentially what this is your listing within Google. Now, one pro tip I'll give you really quick is everyone gets all worked up about their Google local listing, as they should. Google owns, like, I don't know, I think it's around 80% of search market share. So Google does own most of the search market share. That being said, Bing also has local listings, as does Yahoo. Yes, people still search on Bing and Yahoo. So everything we're talking about with Google, if you can replicate it on those other sites, that's also a great idea, because those tend to be less competitive because fewer people actually put their sites up there. So I'm going to ask a quick question to help me customize how I cover this section. You should see a quick poll showing up that asks you, how would you rate your Google business listing right now? And if you can choose bad, okay, good, great, or not sure, that'll help me understand at least where you think you're at right now, and I can kind of give you some tips that are at your level. I suspect we'll have a bit of a big range here just because we always have broad ranges in this. So it's only going to stay up for another 30 seconds. So make sure you vote so we can see where you're at right now. And it looks like a lot of you are kind of in the middle. We have some great, a lot of you are kind of good and okay. what I will say is that your Google local listing is probably the most important part of your online presence, because most people use Google, they do a search. Getting to the top of Google is absolutely vital to getting more business. Most people will do a Google local search and click on the first couple of good alternatives that they see. So if I look at it, it looks like we're kind of, most of us are at the okay and good stages. A couple of you are doing great, so that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll. I appreciate you taking the time to vote. And I'm gonna give you some tips for your Google local listing. For those of you, nobody said bad, so that's good, and nobody said not sure. So I assume you all have the listing and you know the basics of the setup. If not, it's super well documented with Google how to get yourself set up and claim your listing. What I want to focus our time on are some tips to help your profile do better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you these tips, then we're going to look at them in action on some actual listings to give you more ideas and inspiration around your profile. Again, if you have questions as we go, please type them in as we go. I prefer to handle the questions as we go, so that, you know, it's relevant in the moment versus trying to handle them all at the end and looping back to topics. So the first and most important thing is make sure you complete as much as possible in your Google local listings. So that includes images, details. Always make sure your hours are accurate. Google will even reach out and say, hey, there's a holiday coming up. Could you share your hours for the holiday? Make sure that you're putting all of that information in there. Have an up-to-date description. You can add specific products. So even add products to it. You want to add categories. You can add status updates to your account. You can connect your social accounts. And those are all different things that you can do to make your profile pop. I see a question coming through asking, how do you edit your local listing? If you haven't already done so, you need to claim your local listing, which is where you say you're the owner of this business. If your listing is already claimed, maybe somebody else in your organization, or if you ever hired a marketing person, somebody else probably claimed it. So you would want to get access to the account. From there, you just log in to Google local, to your Google business listing. I'll show you real quick just so you can see what that looks like. Here we go. So if I just go to Google, so get listed on Google, Google business profiles. So this is where I'm saying, like in the search, it's called places. Here, if you just, I just searched Google My Business because it used to be called Google My Business. Now they call it a Google business profile. So if you just click on here, you can manage your profile if you've already claimed it. If you haven't claimed it yet, just find the listing in search, and there's a button that'll show up if it's unclaimed to allow you to claim that listing. And from there, you manage it all through the Google business profile account. So when I log in here, I can then manage my Google business account directly through this. And this is where I can make edits, changes, etc. So that's where you're able to do this. This will also give you statistics. So if you're wondering, like, how effective is my profile, etc., you can get statistics on how your site is doing as well. So the first thing I said was complete as much information as possible. The second thing that you want to do, though, as you're completing all this information, so I told you, you can add products, you can add categories, you can add a description, you can add updates. Again, what you want to do with all of these things is make sure that your local listing gives Google as much information about what your business does to improve your rankings within the Google local listings. Let me show you an example of why this is so important. So I'm just searching amusement parks near me. I'm in Boca Raton, Florida. So I searched amusement park near me. Now, what you'll notice is none of these are actual amusement parks, right? This is like a mini golf bumper car place. This is like a tiny little water park. This is also like a splash pad water park. I don't know what this one is. I've never heard of it before. None of these are what an actual amusement park is, not a single one. Why does Google show them to me? Well, if we look at, let's just say we look at Boomers, here we go, National Amusement Center chain. They call themselves an amusement park in Boca Raton. When I'm searching for amusement park, I'm looking for like, not this, I'm looking for like what I would say an actual amusement park, but because they have this in their overview, they have it in their type of business, I'm sure if we go down and look in their description, we would likely find words like that as well. All of the places where you can include content, having keywords in that content is vital to supporting ranking better within local searches for those terms. So in this example, I searched florist, but maybe I'm going to search funeral bouquets. Maybe I'm going to search same-day delivery flowers. Whatever those things are that I'm searching within my local listing, if you have those in the assets of your profile, it will improve your probability to rank for them, right? So relevance is important, not just with your website, but also with your Google local listing. So really think about, as you're creating this profile, incorporating the keywords that matter. Believe it or not, even within the reviews, the keywords that are used in the reviews matter a lot to helping you ranking as well. So if somebody said, this is a great amusement park, and Google sees that word a lot, that'll help them to rank. Another example would be, let's say I'm looking for happy hour near me. So if I look for happy hour near me, right? How is it deciding that these have happy hour? Google knows this. Look at what it bolds. Happy hour and beverage is great and reasonably priced. It knows that this place has happy hour because of the text within the reviews. So it's not just reviews that matter, but if people give you more robust reviews where they're using some of the words you want to rank for, that also helps with your relevance in ranking your profile. So relevance and keywords throughout every single element of your local listing is important to expand. Sort of think of it as like expanding your rankability, right? So florist is probably going to be the most competitive one because that's the most obvious description of what your businesses likely do. But if you get into things like funeral flowers, same-day delivery flowers, Mother's Day flowers, whatever it is people are searching for, it's likely less competitive just because fewer businesses take the time to put all of these indicators in their profiles. So let's take a look at some of the elements of a good profile that we can see in action here. The first is photos. So this one has over 4,000 photos, which is a ton for a business like this, I would think. Adding photos, you can add photos every week. You can encourage your customers to add photos with their reviews. Photos help to tell your story, so it's always helpful to have pictures here. You can use a combination of your like traditional stock photos or like, you know, standard photos, but also include user generated. You see they're showing their car outside of the store, things like that. So there's a lot of different opportunities. And again, I'm giving you the highlights. I'm not going to go through every single section. I had mentioned products. Products is a great one. If you don't have products already, add them into your Google listing. The reason products are helpful is, again, it's just giving you more things you could rank for. You all have products available. Take the time to add them here. One of the things that's really nice about this kind of stuff is some of the things that you'll choose to do to market your business, like let's say a Facebook page or an Instagram account. That's like a commitment to keep posting stuff like constantly, right? This is like block off a couple hours, do it once, and then set a task to review your listing maybe every quarter, right? Where you're like, okay, let's check that the products are still accurate if we have any changes. Now, you're not necessarily going to get people who come and browse the products this way. You've probably not done that much when you use Google local listings. But again, all of the different products are helping to tell Google what you're selling, which helps your local listing to rank for more things. So we have products. The next is the Q&A section. If people do ask questions, make sure you're always answering them as quickly as possible. You can also, I've seen people, you know, sort of, I don't want to say like, I don't know, fake questions, but you could have people ask questions as well, like how close are you to the Omni Orlando Resort? and reunion resort. This does not sound like a way a normal person would ask this question. And they're like, we're located just minutes from the Omni and deliver there daily. We deliver reunion daily and it's about 10 minutes away from our shop. So you can even ask questions through a different account and answer them. So if somebody else has a Google account and you give them some questions to ask, you could then go in and answer those to help your listing. So you can see anyone can ask a question. I could ask a question right now. So we have the Q&A section, we have reviews. I'm going to talk about the reviews separately. And then you can see here from Flower Power, this is like an extended about section. You want keywords in this. And then these are status updates. You can post status updates to your Google local listing the same way you would post on Instagram, Facebook, or anywhere else. My suggestion is if you use a social media scheduler to post on Facebook or Instagram, that allows you to also post on Google, do that. It doesn't hurt to post there. I don't know that I would necessarily create unique content for Google because there's no real indicators that people are really looking at these, but it can be good to just post sales, special offers, and again, it's all signaling to Google what it's about. So if you're posting to other social networks and you can add Google to the mix without a lot of extra effort, why not? If you would have to create content specifically for Google, I don't think it's necessarily going to give you the best return on your time investment, but it does help. And then you can connect your profile. So these are all of the key elements of your Google listing. So if we go back to where I came to Flower Power from, right? I just did a search florist near me when I happened to be in Orlando, and you'll see these 3 florists showed up. Now, Flower Power, to me, it's pretty clear why this is the winner. It's rated 4.9 stars based on 1.2 thousand reviews. That's a lot. Then we look at this one, and you see here 5 stars based on 29 reviews. And then we have Kissimmee Florist, which is 4.6 based on 279. So it's a combination of the same things we talked about for SEO, right? It's your authority, your relevance, and instead of technical, I would think about having all that relevant content and being as up to date as possible. That's what Google is looking for. Of all the things in your profile, the things that matter most is 1, relevance, right? So I already talked about it's easy to make sure you have all these different keywords in your description. When it comes to local listings, you don't necessarily need to be using neighborhood names because Google's looking for map proximity and they know your actual location because you'll put your location in and they're looking at map proximity. So you don't need to add zip codes or neighborhoods into your description for this. What you do want to do is, again, think about other than florist or flowers, what about same day delivery? What about, funeral arrangements? What about hospital delivery? All of those things could be things that people are looking for. So make sure you have those in your description. Of all of the things that are going to make a big difference, the one thing that will make the biggest difference on this is the number of reviews. When it comes to how Google is looking at your website, the top things they're looking at is the number of reviews and the positivity of reviews. The other thing I'll point out is that in addition to Google caring about these things, this is what humans care about, right? Like for me, if I literally did this search, I would go with Flower Power, no questions asked. They have over 1,000 reviews and 4.9. I'm like, they're going to be great. That's what's already in my brain. Getting many good reviews is the #1 thing that makes the difference in your ranking. And yes, it's not the only thing, right? Because Google's looking at a lot of factors, like maybe this Ventonove, I don't know how you say that word. Maybe it's closer to me than the Kissimmee Florist was. They also have more 5-star reviews. Kissimmee's only 4.6. So it's not as simple as just reviews. It's all of it together, but reviews is certainly a big part of it. And it's probably the biggest driver of rankings within local listings. So how do you get more positive reviews for your business? It's as simple as asking consistently. And I know that sounds easy, but you have to build it into the way you go about business. Here's something I've noticed. So I'm a very avid traveler. Reviews are vital in the travel industry. Anything where map results show up or where people are making decisions online, reviews are one of the biggest drivers of business. And what's really interesting is if you look at sort of the state of online reviews right now, the businesses with the best reviews these days are actually not the best businesses anymore. Used to be the case. The best reviews these days are the ones who ask for reviews. The best businesses are the ones that ask for reviews and they ask consistently. It's not the best businesses. The key to success is asking at the right time, in the right way, and with a personal element if you can. Let me tell you an example. I was traveling in Croatia and there were all these restaurants on the waterfront. And I opened Google to look at the reviews to decide where to go. One of them had more reviews and more positive reviews than the other. We went there. It was fine, wasn't bad, but it was no better than the other restaurants. They're all the same. Why does this one have so many more and so many more positive reviews? I'm trying to figure this out because it was fine, but it certainly wasn't exceptional. It was just okay. Well, I figured out the answer to that question at the end of the meal. The waiter comes over with a free shot of some kind of alcohol, and he's like, hey, here you go. Could I ask you a quick favor? If you leave a review and mention my name, I could actually win a prize. Would you be open to leaving a review? So first he's like, how is everything? So he gives us free alcohol. Then he's like, how is everything? I'm like, oh, amazing. He's like, great. So would you mind leaving a review? And I'm like, sure. And he's like, okay, just scan this right here. So I scan it. And then he's like, just make sure you mention my name, Joe. That way I can get something at the end. I left a review. I left a 5-star review. It was not 5-star. It was fine. There was nothing bad, but that's how they have more reviews. They're asking and they're asking consistently. I was in a place that sells a certain type of flooring in my neighborhood, and the sales rep there was amazing. She like totally helped me to pick stuff out. They had a QR code sitting on the countertop. And at the end of the experience, she just said to me, hey, would you mind leaving a review? And they offered me a free t-shirt, but like, I don't want a t-shirt from their store. But they didn't need to do that. She was really helpful and I was happy to do it. She's like, would you mind leaving a review? Because, you know, we want as many people as possible to know how helpful we are if they're having trouble deciding. And I was like, perfect. And then she said, yeah, just mention like that we walked you through everything. And I did, and I left a positive review. It's asking and asking consistently and having sort of a process around it. That's what gets you the most reviews. So start by choosing which site is the most important site for you to get reviews on. Most businesses like yours would choose Google as their primary site, but it could be Yelp, could be something else. What is the site that's most vital to your business success? If you're having a hard time choosing the site that matters most, you could also think about looking at your profile. Which profile gets more views? So how many views does your profile get on Yelp versus Google? And the one that's getting the most traction would likely be the best to invest in. The other thing I'll point out is that if you are looking to improve your reviews on Google, if you use tools that are connected to Google with your website, for example, Shopper Approved, which is a part of the Mercury Online Suite, those Shopper Approved reviews will show up on your Google profile if certain conditions are met. So if your e-commerce engine is using a Google approved tool to get reviews, those will automatically sync to your Google listing. So you could say Google's most important, so we're focusing on Shopper Approved because that pushes the reviews to Google. Just something to think about. So you could also look at a site that pushes the reviews out to Google for you as well, or that's recognized by Google. The way I think of it is I want one primary site and then a couple of secondary sites. So maybe my primary site is Google, and then my secondary sites could be Yelp. You see here Yelp, TripAdvisor shows up, etc. Maybe my Facebook page. On the secondary sites, I want at least 10 positive reviews. The reason you want to have some positive reviews on these secondary sites is the worst thing that can happen to a small business is one person has a bad experience. I'm sure, like I've been there, I'm sure you've all been there. One person has had a bad experience and they go like scorched earth and they're leaving this bad review everywhere. And all that's there is their horrid review. Now you go into panic mode trying to offset it with positivity. Build the positivity, look at your regular customers, people you have relationships with, and just be upfront with them. Hey, we're looking to improve our reviews. Would you mind quickly leaving a review here? That's what works best. So here's the best practices to get reviews. One, build a process so that you're asking people consistently for reviews and you make it as easy as possible. Could be a link in an email, a QR code at checkout in store. Maybe the delivery person is incentivized. Make it personal. A personal request for a review will go a longer way than an incentive. When we started focusing on our review strategies, we tried two things. One, please leave us an honest review, and as a thank you, we'll give you a Starbucks gift card. Two, this is really important to us because we're trying to grow our business and your help matters. Personal request outperformed a Starbucks gift card like 100 to 1, not even close. Ask personally, make it authentic. You can use appropriate incentives if you want to. When it comes to incentivizing reviews, it is against federal law in the United States and probably in Canada to ask people to leave a review or to incentivize a positive review. So if I said, I'll give you a $5 gift card if you leave a 5-star review, I would be breaking the law. You can offer an incentive just to leave a review. There's a place that I go for massages and they're like, hey, if you leave us a review on Google, we'll give you $5 off your next massage. That's completely okay. They're allowed to do that. It's a small incentive. And if I had a bad experience, I'm probably not going to leave the review because I'm not going to come back. The other key to success with reviews is what we call pre-filtering. So here what you want is to sort of pre-filter so that positive people leave reviews. So the waiter at the restaurant, how was your experience today? Oh, it was great. Awesome, would you mind leaving a review? I'm sure if I said the food was kind of bad, he probably wouldn't have followed up asking me for a review. So look for opportunities to pre-filter so your requests are going to people where you know they've had a good experience already. If you have an email that you send out after flowers are delivered, you could say, how was your experience? And have two different buttons, one that says great, one that says opportunities to improve. Great sends to a review site, opportunities to improve opens an email so they can tell you their feedback and you can help them. So get in the habit of asking consistently. I saw a question to come through, what about bad reviews? So bad reviews are a part of business. If you're talking about fake reviews, every review site is different in terms of what they allow you to do to manage fake reviews. Usually all you can do is report them, but that's it. None of the valid review sites want you to be able to cancel bad reviews, so they make it hard, if not impossible. This is where I would say, you know what they say in sports, like the best offense is a good defense or like something like that. Maybe it's backwards, I don't know. The point is, if you have a whole bunch of good reviews, those bad reviews don't matter as much. So it is a part of business. Your ability to get rid of them is limited, even if they're fake. My neighbor has a business. Someone left a bad review who they've never heard of and hasn't done business with them. They can't get Google to take it down. This is just your life. The key is if you have a positive review strategy, those bad reviews will matter less. The second thing is respond to it. Respond to every single review, good or bad. Respond as quickly as possible. If it is a bad review, if it's someone who's not done business with you, you can say, hey, we take our reputation very seriously. We've tried to look you up to understand what happened. We can't find a record of you in our system. Could you please let us know so that we can fix it? And then leave your response. Always keep in mind when you respond, you're responding not just for the person who's upset with you, but for everyone who sees that review. So be transparent, show that you care, and respond for everyone else. If you've actually made a mistake or a real customer isn't happy, validate them. Most people leaving negative reviews, that's what they want more than anything is validation. You did something wrong and they really are hoping you'll show they care. Very few people want to take you down for no reason. So if someone has had a bad experience, act like you care. A friend of mine runs a restaurant. He got a bad review from someone and he said, hey, I think he questioned whether the review was valid or not, but he said, we take feedback really seriously because it helps us to improve. I can see in our system who your waitress was that night, and I'm also going to go ahead and review the footage so I can see exactly what happened. Please know this isn't the way we want people to have an experience with us. We're going to look into it and see exactly what happened and take action. and at least you feel validated, right? So respond to reviews, both good and bad, and do your best to make them right. If you've had good reviews, take a look at what Flower Factory is doing to highlight these on their site. Good reviews are one of the top things that will lead to more business for you over time. If you have positive reviews on different sites, put them on your website to build trust on your site as well, because again, your online reputation is Google, your website, everything else. So the other thing to think about with your online reputation, so we talked about Google, we talked about Google local listings, we talked about reviews. The last thing I want to talk about is your presence overall. When you go to Google and search for a business, so let's say I know I'm going to shop with Flower Power. So I'm searching Flower Power Orlando on Google. What's going to show up? Well, their Google local listing and their website, but also links to their social media accounts. Yelp often shows up. Believe it or not, Grubhub shows up for a ton of florists. I didn't know that. Also, competitors will show up. Similar to what I said earlier, the best, again, I don't know if it's like the best defense is a good offense or backwards, but the point is, the more positive assets you have out there about your own business, the more you control your reputation. So when I search for you, if you have a social media presence, you're managing Yelp, you have a good website, you're really paying attention, that's going to show up ahead of everything else. So take a minute and Google your website, or Google your business name, I mean, and just see what shows up. And you can see when I Googled Flower Power, I see their Facebook page, Yelp, and then look what's here, a competitor. This happens because Google will just keep showing results, right? And at some point they run out of stuff about your business, so they just find another florist. So when you're looking for this, what you want to do is make sure that you have as many assets out there as possible so you can sort of own more of those spaces. So one, when you're online on any social network anywhere else, always make sure you have a consistent username, clear description with keywords, you link back to your site, you have images, etc. But also look at different websites where you can create a presence that are known to rank well in search engines. So create and optimize a presence on any of the sites you see here as a way to show up higher. So when I searched for Flower Power, their competitor showed up, but had they had a YouTube account, maybe a Better Business listing or listing on a local chamber, that could have shown up before their competitor and driven their competitor down further. Plus, they then control more of the narrative for what's being found about them online. So look beyond just your website to really own your presence. So here's the things that I want you to think about with your online presence. One, optimize your website for SEO. Depending on how technical and advanced you are, you could be thinking about the full ART spectrum and do some research with some SEO tools, or it could be as simple as improving your content. Two, maximize your Google local listing. And as a part of that, make sure you have a strong review process and strategy. This will pay out forever. You know, if you've been in business for 10 years, imagine if 10 years ago, you started getting 10 reviews a month. You'd have over 1,000 by now. And that's only 10 reviews a month. The sooner you start, the sooner you get the impact. So get started with reviews, look for online directory or listing opportunities just so you have more positive impressions. And then make sure your online presence everywhere is consistent and on brand so that you're continuously growing your reputation. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, attention, and all the great conversation and questions today. I'm going to pass it back over to our friends at FTD to wrap us up for our time together.
Awesome. Thanks, Krista. Another great webinar for sure. A lot of great information in there. Guys, if you are not already registered for parts 3 to 5, I would go to ftdi.com now. Make sure you don't miss any of these upcoming webinars. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. Recording will be available on demand on the FTD Mercury Network Florist YouTube channel. And as a reminder, today's webinar is only part 2 of what we can agree will be an incredible 5-part e-commerce webinar series. Krista will be back in 3 weeks on Tuesday, August 20th for part 3, launching a social media plan for results. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.